Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Today I'll be going over my thoughts and ideas about the next area in Genshin Impact. The Chasm is most likely going to be coming to the game very soon, as it will lead us to the next big region in our journey, that being Sumeru. In this video, I'll go over what we know about the Chasm, explain its lore, and speculate on a potential story for the area. Remember, this video is speculation, so beyond what we know, don't take this as fact. Also, if you liked the video, consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot and I'd really appreciate it. Anyways, let's move right on and get into the video. To the west of Liyue, you'll find the entrance to the chasm. Here you'll find a bunch of mining equipment as well as villagers and treasure hoarders. The miners that were here have mostly abandoned the area due to a series of mysterious accidents. Some of the miners, however, have actually joined the treasure hoarders, becoming the crushers of the group. According to Musion, during the version 2.0 Thunder Sojourn event, there are also ruined sentinels in the chasm, much like the ones found throughout Inazuma. But how was this region formed? According to legend, the chasm was formed around 6,000 years ago when a falling star landed in the area. The two new ruins east of the chasm were formed by a fragment of this meteorite as well. However, this meteorite was described as having a proud and agitated temper, and during the Archon War it returned to the heavens, which left a massive canyon now known as the chasm. After the Archon War, the people of Liyue began mining in the area. Gems such as Smaragdus Jadeite and Smaragdus Nephrite were mined here. The being known as Childe also resided here, and when mining in the area disturbed the ley lines, he brought chaos to the land. With the help of some Adepti, Morax fought him down to the deepest depths of the chasm, and eventually sealed him in Nantianmen. This fight also resulted in the creation of a very rare ore known as Dragonfall, which these days has been mined into obscurity. Besides its history, we don't know much else about the chasm. However, Esther in Dragonspine remarks that the climate in the chasm is very different as compared to the rest of Liyue, much like the difference in climates between Dragonspine and the rest of Mondstadt. So now we'll get into the more speculative side of things, starting with an in-depth look at the lore and what it all could mean. Let's begin this section of the video with how the chasm came to be. As I said, it was formed by a falling star around 6,000 years ago when it crashed into the area. This concept of a falling star reminded me of the version 1.1 Unreconciled Stars event. In this event, pieces of falling stars descended upon Teyvat, and those who touched them went into a deep slumber where they had mysterious dreams. Eventually though, with the help of Mona and Fischl, the traveler was able to destroy the meteorite core and free everyone from their slumbers. So now let's get back to the falling star that was in the chasm. It was described as having a proud and agitated temper, which has led me to a theory regarding whose constellation the falling star belonged to. I believe it was the constellation of an old god, one who was around before even Morax was born. When the meteor first fell, Morax was a young god, so I don't believe it belonged to him. But I still believe we may have met who it does belong to. The way I see it, the owner of this fallen star was none other than the dragon sealed below Nantianmen, the legendary beast known as Childe. I also think that the fragments that broke off of the meteorite became the other varieties of bishops that we've seen throughout Liyue. Instead of putting people to sleep like the falling stars in the Unreconciled Stars event, these meteorites could have formed into all new creatures, perhaps as a result of a stronger ambition. I know this may seem a bit out there, but bear with me here. Let's start off this theory with how Childe's personality relates to how the meteor was described. The fallen star was stated to have a proud and agitated temper, much like how Childe was seen as a tremendously powerful being whose anger got the better of him at the chasm 1,000 years ago, and recently in Zhongli's second story quest. It's also interesting that the meteor had broken into pieces when it fell, which could be described as a type of erosion. The story in which we met Childe was all about erosion and how he wasn't his whole self anymore. And now as for the reason the meteor leapt back up into the heavens, I think it is simply because Morax gave Childe a new body, which meant his constellation might have had to be restored. However, with his falling star partially eroded, he was almost a different being, and perhaps he didn't remember who he once was. Perhaps he used to be a powerful god who was slain before the birth of Morax, and his pride and anger caused the star to fall so that one day he could be revived. This would also help to explain why the ley lines in the chasm specifically caused Asia to go wild 1,000 years ago. His fallen star was there for so long that perhaps the ley lines could have somehow resonated with his constellation, meaning if one were tampered with, then the other would change as a result. Agedaha's erosion may have very well been caused by the change in these ley lines. The battle that caused Agedaha to be sealed away also led to the formation of a rare substance which was dubbed Dragonfall. I believe that there is more to this gem than we are led to believe, but I'll get more into that in the next section. I also want to quickly bring up the fact that there are ruined sentinels in the chasm. Perhaps we'll see other creatures of the Abyss and Conria, such as Abyss Mages, Rift Wolves, or even a new enemy exclusive to this area. Anyways, with the lore out of the way, I'd like to move on to the climate section of the video, which will go over what I think the chasm could be like, what enemies we could find there, and what unique environments we'll encounter there. So, let's begin this section with what we know about the climate in the chasm. Honestly, all we really know is that it's different from the rest of Liyue. It's never stated how it is different, but I have some ideas. These ideas come from the battle between Morax and Agedaha, and how this event could have reshaped the entire area. First, let's go over the geography and shape of the land itself. Naturally, it will be in the shape of a chasm, as it's called the chasm. It may be surrounded by mountains, as when the falling star initially landed, it could have pushed up the land up into the sides, creating a natural wall around the area. The mining in the area could also make it so the chasm has more layers to it, and potentially even an underground cave system. And now as for the climate itself, I believe it will be rich in elemental energy. Perhaps Agedaha's attempted escape has caused the energy levels in the ley lines in the chasm to spike, which may be part of the reason why it was evacuated. But what kind of elemental energy would there be? Due to the presence of Smaragdus Jadeite and Dragonfall in the area, I believe it would be an amalgamation of many different elements. This would probably be the 4 elements that Bishops can absorb, that being Pyro, Cryo, Hydro, and Electro. If this is the case, we can expect Bishops to be somewhat common in the chasm. However, the chasm is also known to connect Liyue to Sumeru, the land of Dendro. This makes me believe that there will be some areas affected by Dendro here, and if the chasm is released alongside Dendro characters, perhaps we'll even see a new world boss here. I could go into my thoughts about Dendro here, but I'm saving that for a video in a couple of weeks. Now, in my opinion, I believe that the chasm will be to Liyue as Dragonspine is to Mondstadt. If this is the case, perhaps we'll see the area's equivalent of Crimson Agates scattered throughout Dragonspine. It would make sense, as Geoculus wouldn't spawn here, so there would need to be something to fill the gap in this area. Perhaps there still could be Dragonfall here, but it's so deep underground that it would be dangerous for ordinary miners to attempt to obtain it. I also think that there is possibility for a new environmental hazard to be introduced, much like how Sheer Cold was introduced with Dragonspawn. I believe there could be areas where there's too much elemental energy for even the Traveler to handle. It would be interesting to see how we'd get around this, and it could provide for some interesting puzzles. Anyways, those are all my ideas for the climate and layout of the chasm. In the next and final section, I'd like to go over the potential story for this region, and how it could potentially serve as a prelude to Sumeru. To start off, I'm going to say right away that when the chasm is introduced, I believe we're going to get a new Archon quest alongside it. Why do I think this? Well, in version 2.2, some new voice lines were added regarding 2 characters that haven't been released yet. These characters are Shenhe and Yunjin. For now, I'll be focusing on the few of the voice lines regarding Shenhe. Voice lines regarding her can be listened to from Xingqiu, Ganyu, and Hu Tao. However, she also has some voice lines locked behind an unknown quest from Ningguang, Zhao, and Shangyun. There are some voice lines in the game locked behind quests, and most are locked behind the Archon quests. The voice lines regarding Shenhe being locked behind an unknown quest makes me believe that we will get an Archon quest in Liyue again soon, and with the chasm likely coming to the game within a few months, I believe it'll take us there. Now, what story would be told here? I believe it would mainly be about how to get to Sumeru, but it could also touch on the history of the chasm, going over the mysterious accidents that occurred and why everyone left. Shinhei would probably play a big role in this quest, which makes me wonder how we'll come to meet her. From the voice lines we do have about her, she is somewhat fierce, and even Ganyu doesn't know her that well. Regardless, I believe that she will be vital in our journey in the chasm, and perhaps she will be the key to learning more about its past, as well as maybe even pieces of history about the rest of Liyue. Anyways, moving on from her, I think it is possible we may have another encounter with the Fatui Harbinger Scaramouche here. In the quest Clean House, the Shrine Maiden Shiziru suggests that the Fatui lost one Harbinger in the conflict, and the other has gone missing, suggesting that Scaramouche has deserted the Fatui and taken A's Gnosis for himself. This means that we will probably see him again, and if he is on the run, somewhere closed down like the chasm might be a good place for him to go. Moving on from the Fatui, I also believe we may have our first encounter with a character from Sumeru in the chasm, as it links Liyue to Sumeru. This character could be Sino, who was seen in the Travail trailer, or it could also be a completely new character who we have never seen. Either way, this would help it act as a Sumeru prelude, which would build up hype for the region to release around the middle of next year. Anyways, that is all I have for you guys today. While I'm not too sure of what we could exactly see in a storyline in this region due to the many possibilities, I still think it very well could involve the characters I mentioned. I believe we'll get the chasm in early next year, perhaps in version 2.4 or 2.5. But those are all my ideas for the chasm. I'd also love to hear your ideas about this area in the comment below. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all in the next video.